Story 1. Many retail stores, including 24-hour Walmarts, CVS, and Walgreens, were open. I am somewhat antisocial and loved shopping at 1 to 2 in the morning, and it really helped with a sick child in the middle of the night. Story 2. My local gas station here in the middle of nowhere has been selling gummy worms out of a large tub since I was born in the 1980s. I have fond memories of grabbing the little tongs and filling my pocket to the level of quarters I had, at 5 per coin. Once COVID-19 hit, the tub went away, and so did a piece of my childhood. The new owner refuses to bring it back, and it makes me sad every time I look at the empty space next to the old cash register. Story 3. My trust in my fellow humans was low to start, but during and after the pandemic, it is at an all-time low. My goodness, some of you people are so incredibly foolish. I had no idea it was this bad. Story 4. People started doing everything very selfishly when we were all at home and the roads were empty, and they never went back to sharing. Traffic is awful. Crowd behavior is awful. It's like we all got some kind of social measles that made us forget that we were supposed to share and be kind. Story 5. Skeleton crews at any establishment. I work at a casino with 1,600 games on the floor, and we have 10 slot technicians between day crew, 4, swing shift, 3, and graveyard shift, 3. Every one of those people gets 2 days off a week. Between calls and just general things breaking, we are overwhelmed. If someone takes paid time off or gets sick, we're all in trouble. Story 6. My memory. I had original COVID-19 COVID Classic from way back before the vaccine. My memory is terrible now. I used to remember everything. Now I keep lists, and I have a list of lists, and I have to check it often. The change in my memory from 2020 to now is truly frightening. Story 7. Walmart and other grocery store hours. I miss the 24-hour stores. I didn't have to go during the daytime when the other hordes of humanity are moving about. Story 8. People's manners changed during the pandemic. It was so stressful, and it disrupted so many lives and living conditions that people became more rude, especially in public-facing jobs. Unfortunately, this behavior has stuck around. I am now pleasantly surprised when people remember their pleases and thank yous and show patience, as people are often rude these days. Still, it can be tiring even if it's not the biggest problem to have, but it costs nothing to be polite. Story 9. Gym, grocery, and restaurant store hours have changed. It's not because they can't get enough labor. It's because they learned they can force people to come during whatever hours they choose. Why go back to how it was if it doesn't affect their bottom line? It frustrates me endlessly as a night owl. I came home once around midnight, and there was literally nothing open in my city of 500,000 except bars, and most of them don't even serve food that late. If it's past 2 a.m., your only option is literally gas station food. Story 10. My comfort level in crowds. I'll go out to concerts, sporting events, and other big group events, but I'm definitely thinking about the fact that I'm sharing the air with thousands of other people. That never used to be the case. Story 11. People, goddamn people. Not being able to get their hair done or go to a restaurant for seemingly any length of time has completely broken a huge chunk of the population. Story 12. Restaurants that used to be open until a reasonably late hour. Most places around me used to be open until 10 during the week before COVID-19, but for some reason, they all close at 8 or 9 now. Story 13. There are still ongoing supply chain issues in the industry. Some of it has to do with a lack of quality workers. A lot of people were furloughed and never came back. They reevaluated and found something else. I just started a new job last month. A lateral shift for me. My change is indirectly related to COVID. If we don't have any more economic setbacks beyond what is going on now, or a major war or another pandemic, I think it will take 10 years to get COVID completely in the rearview mirror. Story 14. Practically all Las Vegas buffets were removed during the pandemic, and about 95% of them never came back. It was a loss leader for the casinos, but it brought in the crowds and the gambling money. Now, the financial analysts in the casino think that they can just cut one of the best attractions they have. I'm hoping that sometime in the next few years, they will realize their mistake. Story 15. Everything is self-checkout. It's like I work for the store. I hate that grocery stores have 14 registers, 2 are open, and the rest are all self-checkout. So stupid. Story 16. Well, my health and life are gone. 2 years housebound with long-term COVID. And more people are joining with reinfections. We may not be in the emergency part of the pandemic, but surges in epidemic form are still happening. It's a summer surge now. Avoid reinfections. It's what changed and ended my life. Story 17. It is being able to find food after 10 p.m. in my town. Even Walmart and Kroger are no longer 24/7. Everything in my town closes at 10 p.m. except the Wendy's by the highway and Waffle House. Story 18. The education system in my state. Our governor locked it down longer than almost any other state, and the kids haven't even come close to recovering. It is turning out that even the preschool and kindergarten children are way behind both socially and academically. Story 19. Speed limits. I swear, the local highway that connects 3 major cities is 55 miles per hour posted, but during the pandemic, everyone started going 70 plus. It has not changed, and I swear police officers do not even know what to do because it is not just one car, it is everyone. Story 20. Prices of even basic things. I am wealthy enough, literally by accident, and live so massively beneath my means that I will never be touched by anything other than rampant and record-setting hyperinflation. But man, I really feel for the average working-class person, especially up here in Canada, where American visitors are frequently amazed at the prices of everything when compared to our wages. It's much worse than even the worst parts of America. Story 21. The availability of older car parts and sometimes newer cars too. Civility and common decency are the important ones, though. My theory on that is that the COVID-19 virus has altered some people's neurology, making them much more irritable and irritating. Very noticeable in any service industry dealing with many people daily. Story 22. The cost of living went up significantly. Wages never changed for most people except government workers and those in administrative positions, and prices never came back down. Story 23. Pretty much anything to do with the economy. I know people like to blame the system for why issues like inflation, the housing market, insurance, or groceries are so bad, because it's pretty easy. It has an easy fix, which is, if the system is the issue, just get rid of the system. That does seem hard to do when you think about it, but that's before you compare it to the alternative. In reality, the reason isn't the system. We've had the same systems in place for decades, the ones in place during what was probably the best economic period in America's history. The reason is that what could be called a practically biblical event disrupted the world majorly for a full year and a half or so. And seeing as it's a lot harder to just say, oh, just reverse the effects of a literal biblical type plague, people blame the system. Story 24. Airline routes. I fly 60 to 70 times a year all over the country, and getting to the East Coast is a challenge now. Everything has to go through Dallas or Denver. I miss the days of non-stop flights from Phoenix to Tampa. Currently sitting on a plane. This trip used to be 4 hours and 15 minutes. Now it's a minimum of 7 hours. Story 25. The car market. It's not just inflation happening here. For the most part, the new cars are getting back to the normal price point, not so many dealer markups anymore. But the used market is insane. It's thousands above what that used car should be selling for. At every single level in the entire chain of used cars, everything is more expensive than it should be, even if you factor in inflation. Story 26. I don't know if COVID-19 is the main reason, but I miss buffets. They were kind of already going downhill. I used to love waking up on the occasional weekend to go eat at a breakfast buffet. Story 27. You know, it's the weirdest thing in my neighborhood. I live in a town about 30 minutes outside of Detroit, and for me, it's the noise. Before the pandemic, my neighborhood was a reasonably quiet place. But at the start of the pandemic, a large number of young men in my neighborhood went out and purchased dirt bikes, four-wheelers, mini bikes, you name it. None of these are street legal, but they're constantly speeding by my house at all hours of the day, and they're incredibly loud. I don't know why, but it appears people have become far more rude and careless with their money. Story 28. Outdoor dining in Washington, D.C. Restaurants are still taking up space where we used to parallel park. It's like they can't give up outside dining, and restaurants that started without an outside patio now have permanent outside dining spots, taking up parking spaces in an already crowded city. Story 29. Shaking hands. A while ago, someone gave me her hand, and I was confused for a moment about what I was supposed to do. It used to be a few times everyday thing at work, and now I do it maybe once per year. Story 30. People's idea of what is appropriate in a public movie theater. Taking videos on their phone of the movie, using their phones at full brightness, yelling to their friends and taking phone calls. Insane. Go outside if you need to do something loud or bright. This isn't rocket science. Story 31. My parents moved out of state in 2019 after my siblings moved out of state. Then I got pregnant in December 2019 and spent basically the entire pregnancy isolated, as well as the first year of my child's life isolated. There is such a distinct before and after for me that nothing feels normal anymore. Moreover, the general social climate feels like it is deteriorating. Story 32. Restaurants. Most are overpriced. Dollar and value menus are a thing of the past. The service is worse. They close earlier. Menus that were downsized during the pandemic have never returned to normal at many places. Prime parking spots are now permanent to-go and pick-up spots. Story 33. There are still people driving alone in their own car and wearing a mask. In Newfoundland, there is a guy who posts COVID-19 provincial infection counts monthly without fail. Many people refuse to go back to the office. Story 34. Almost everything. Bars, cafes, and restaurants all close much earlier than they used to. Bars that used to stay open until 2 a.m. now close at 9 p.m., for example. Story 35. The celebration of ending a year and the optimism going into the next year. Before 2019, around the end of the year, I would both read and hear from people about what had happened that year and how the next was going to be better. It gave a sense of comfort to see everyone excited about what crazy stuff the next year would bring us. Now, in the year 2024, years just pass. I don't see anyone looking back at the year and just wanting to get on with the next one. I don't see any excitement at all for the next one. I mean, obviously, everything is difficult now on many fronts, but there was also quite some bad stuff in years prior. Story 36. My desire to succeed may be a combination of things. Companies never got back to full staff, thinking they could be more profitable by continuing to do without, and the constant overwork just wore me down until I stopped caring about moving up any further. At age 55, I just decided I was done climbing and want to work my remaining few years until retirement in relative peace. I got tired of being promised I could run things how I knew they should be run, only to be forced to implement counterproductive policies that hurt not only employees but long-term profit as well. I still do the job and am good at it, but when my day is done at noon, I no longer look for ways to help improve things. I just make sure my work is in top shape and move on. Story 37. We are experiencing an unusually high number of calls. Basically translates into, we don't want to talk to you. Go away. Story 38. Healthcare, from both a personal and professional standpoint. I used to be able to get an appointment with my primary care physician within 2 weeks. Now the soonest appointment I can get is 3 months away. God forbid it's a specialist appointment, where I've waited 11 months to be seen before. Wait times for the emergency room are up to 16 hours at my hospital, and then waiting to be admitted to a floor from the emergency department can take up to 6 days. If you need to switch primary care physicians, you're either out of luck because no one is taking new patients or, once again, the wait is months long. Just for your information, it's never going to improve from here. It's utterly impossible, especially with the decimation of people's health from COVID-19 infections. So strap in for the show and don't expect to be seen in a timely manner for just about anything. Story 39. Grocery store prices, store hours, cost of living, people's attitudes, TV and movies got way worse, layoffs happen more now. Online shopping took over, people's driving capabilities never recovered. Story 40. Level of service. I feel like everywhere you go now, people are just doing 80%. More people are actively on their phones while at work and no one cares. Story 41. People minding their own business. Ever since people felt they could tell someone not wearing a mask that they were literally and actively harming others, They decided to expand that into any visible aspect of our lives. Seriously, man. Forget all of you all. Story 42. Human cashiers at counters or cash registers. They were trying to reduce those staff even before the pandemic to begin with. Using the pandemic, they accelerated the reduction with huge vertical touchscreen displays to order and pay. I miss those days when you interacted with someone to place your fast food order. Story 43. Tipping is still at the pandemic levels, where we were using it to show our appreciation to primarily food service workers for working through the pandemic. Now that it is over, they feel like they are entitled to the same danger pay. Story 44. People's behavior on flights is still off. So angry, so rude. Education. We have a generation of kids that essentially miss 2 to 3 years of real schooling, a lack of quality teachers, and students that still don't show up to school. Dumb kids with device addiction and poor social skills are our future. Work. A lot of businesses are still hybrid or remote. When companies and industries slimmed down their workforces, they realized they could run cheaper by running smaller staff numbers into the ground. A lot of industries are project-based and fluid, meaning they need flexible staffing. There's more need for freelancers, and many industries that bounced back and hired back the number of employees they had prior to COVID-19 have recently had massive layoffs because they can't project the same profits as pre-COVID-19. Retail. Physical retail stores were struggling with online shopping on the rise, but COVID-19 really killed it in most places.